Welcome, newcomers, members, and friends, to our joint online service between Central Unitarian Church and the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. My name is Tom Lupfer, and I am the Vice President of CUC.
Good morning. My name is Robert Markowitz, and I'm the Vice President of the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. Both USR and CUC are inclusive communities which celebrate you on your spiritual journey, no matter your theology, gender expression, age, ethnicity, sexual orientation, race, education, mental and physical health. You are welcome in this community.
Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith based instead on shared promises. We don't demand any particular beliefs about God or the cosmos, but we do believe in the interdependent unity of all existence. And we do believe that healing love is accessible to us all. Here, we celebrate each person as we ask questions, seek to deepen our lives, and increase our capacity to live well.
We hope that you find something meaningful at our service this morning, especially during these uncertain times. Please reach out in the chat box to say hello. And if you are new and would like to know more, please check the link and that will be dropped into the chat for ways to learn more and sign up for each congregation's communications.
We are grateful to all those who are helping to make this morning's service happen. A rather long list as our two congregations work together.
Directly after service, we will have time for a virtual coffee hour in the same space. Please stay, get to know one another, and enjoy this time we have together.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Come and take a deep breath. Listen to this sound, and in it, hear the sound of new friends made and the chirps of the returning birds. Breathe and listen to this sound. And in it, hear the new life sprouting out of the damp earth. Take a deep breath, and in this sound, just be in the life that awakens after the thaw all around us. Breathe and listen. Please join me in speaking our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the light of truth, which illuminates our minds, for the warmth of love, which nourishes our hearts, and for the energy of action, which animates our spirits. May this light remind us of our shared dreams and our common humanity, as we honor our past, vision for the future, and gather together in the embrace of this healing and hopeful community.
We find ourselves at the turning of the season, a moment of balance between two worlds.
Here we return.
We find ourselves on uncertain terrain, not quite sure what the path ahead will bring.
Here we return.
We find ourselves in times of loss, grieving for all that has passed.
Here we return.
We find ourselves facing the horizon, our dreams not yet in reach, but still held in hope.
Here we return.
Here we return to acknowledge something greater than ourselves,
to celebrate the mystery and wonder of the universe,
to embrace an all-encompassing love,
to nurture our spirits for the path ahead,
to transform ourselves and the world.
Here we return.
Please join in singing our hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth. The lyrics will be on your screen.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome spring. Today, we are honoring and celebrating the vernal equinox here in our Earth's Northern Hemisphere. We've come to know this as the first day of our spring season. Since the winter solstice, the length of our days have been slowly growing until this point in time when they are equal. And of course, from this day on until the summer solstice in June, the length of our days will continue to grow and the strength of the warmth of our sun as well. If you've wondered about the science behind this astronomical event, we have a short video to share with you this morning. Enjoy.
Spring. No, not that kind of spring. The season. It's that time of year again. Spring is just about here, and it's time for pastel colors everywhere you turn. The spring, or vernal, or March equinox happens on either the 19th, 20th, or 21st of March each year. The equinox's date and time are different every year because the Earth doesn't exactly take 365 days to orbit the sun. The orbit time is more like 365¼ days-ish. The actual equinox is the point in time when the sun shines directly over the equator. And this happens again in the fall, just in case you miss it. Now, the word equinox comes from Latin meaning equal night. But we won't see equal day and night on the equinox. And this is because of our latitude, which is the imaginary lines that parallel the equator. Those latitude lines and where we're located on the planet is why we'll have equal day and night a few days before the March equinox. So Earth's atmosphere bends sunlight so we see what looks like the upper edge of the sun, even though it's technically below the horizon. Now that gives us a few more minutes of daylight than we would have had without light refraction. Oh, and you know how daylight has been increasing since the winter solstice back in December? Fun fact, the rate of daylight growth is actually the greatest right around the March equinox. Days continue to grow longer until summer starts in June, but just not as much. Happy spring.
Although we know now the science behind the solstices and the equinoxes, that was not always the case for our ancient ancestors. However, they were aware of the cyclical patterns in the sky, and they were able to keep track of them and depend on them. We know this from the structures they left behind, the megalithic cairns and henges and pyramids found all around the earth that were built thousands of years ago, marking these celestial movements. Today, we can just flip our calendars and see when spring officially arrives. We also have so many signs from nature to show us if we just look around. In addition to the obviously slowly warming temperatures, we can look for those tiny buds on the bare tree branches, the small shoots of green coming up from the earth, sometimes right through the snow. And of course, we see and hear more animals around. For those who keep bees, the past few weeks have seen an increased activity, thankfully. Some animals, like my local bear, are coming out of their hibernation, and some are beginning their mating seasons. At my house where I live in the woods, they're bustling with birds and bunnies and squirrels, soon to be followed by the young fawn and birds' nests filled with tiny eggs. The list of early signs of spring goes on and on. Can you think of some others? Why don't you type them in the chat for me? Spring is a glorious season of rebirth and renewal after a long winter. But remember that you are a part of nature too. And this is spring for you as well. Blessed be.
Good morning. For many years, I have traveled to Ireland to visit family and to explore its many sacred sites. Whenever I would return home, something felt different. Something had shifted outdoors, in my home, and I think even inside me. And for years, I tried to pinpoint what that was, but I could never quite identify it. This year feels that way for me as well. Something has changed. Something is different. There is a line from a Rumi poem, "Walk out like someone suddenly born into color." Take a moment to feel into Rumi's line, "Walk out like someone suddenly born into color." Ah, color, color, color. Yes. The skunk cabbage that is the first to spring up alongside the brook in my backyard seems so vivid, and the miniature purple iris and white snowdrops seem to be just luminous. We know that the vernal equinox celebrates the equal day and night and the balance of opposites. We fill the spring with customs, ceremonies that celebrate renewal, and many of us spend hours gardening. When we celebrate, when we stick our hands in the dirt, we are in relationship to the earth and participate in its renewal along with our own. Like returning from my trips to Ireland, something is different this spring. Moving from black and white to full color that will continue to grow more vivid over the days to come. Oh, the joy of spring. Oh, the relief that it has returned once again. and that we get to experience all the variations of green nature has to offer us. As the earth blossoms into the fullness of this green, may we deepen in relationship to the earth and to ourselves. Here is a poem by Rosario Murillo celebrating this relationship. I'm going to plant a heart in the earth, water it with love from a vein. I'm going to praise it with the push of muscle and care for it in the sound of all dimensions. I'm going to leave a heart in the earth so it may grow and flower, a heart that throbs with longing, that adores everything green, that will be strength and nourishment for the birds, that will be the saps of plants and mountains.
At CUC, our mission is to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
And at USR, our mission is to grow in mind and spirit, to act with love for justice, and to transform ourselves and the world.
Although different in their particular language, our mission statements are similar at their core. We share a commitment to building the beloved community.
The work of fulfilling the heart of our shared mission never stops, and it is only made possible by our gifts of time, talents, and material support.
Gathering together in a shared space, shared service, and collecting our offering together affirms the vital contributions each of us makes to our congregations and to the larger community.
On your screen, you will see the instructions on how to give. To make things easier, we are using CUC's offering plate to collect the full offering. However, our plate today will be evenly split between both of our congregations.
Our offering today recognizes all that we have to share with each other.
Our offering today celebrates the presence of Unitarian Universalism here in our shared home of Northern New Jersey.
Our offering today honors our collective work in creating a more welcoming and better world for all.
Please give generously, and the offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. It's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. here comes the sun.
Our first reading this morning is a Rumi poem translated by Coleman Banks titled Don't Go Back to Sleep. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep.
The spring equinox serves as a threshold, a time when both night and day are equal in length. In this season, the coldness and desolation of winter make way for the warmth and abundance of summer. The seeds which have lain dormant under the ice and snow sprout new life and new promises. In traveling through this landscape of change, we let go of one way of being, so a new way of being may emerge. Here at this threshold, we encounter spirits with the power to transform. These spirits exist in many cultures and traditions as tricksters, such as Puck from the Celtic religions, Hermes from Greek mythology, or Coyote from a number of indigenous cultures in North America. These tricksters are spiritual border crossers and shapeshifters. They may suddenly appear and disappear from our view. They are neither inherently good nor inherently bad. Their antics can deceive us. They often have something important to offer us. Now, tricksters frequently appear during times of transition, such as during the change of seasons. At this particular threshold of springtime, they remind us that spring is not only about rebirth and joy. The flowers of spring last but a short while after all, and then they are gone. The sun can easily give way to snow again. Heavy rains can turn our world into mud, shifting the land beneath our feet. The crocus may offer its bright hope at the edge of melted snow one day, only to be destroyed by frost the next. With rebirth, there's also loss. And engaging with a trickster reminds us that the door is round and open, and people move back and forth across the doorsill where two worlds touch. In the spring of 1997, I was living in Boston, and the last week of March brought glorious spring weather, and I remember everybody dressed in t-shirts and shorts basking in the returning warmth. We experienced a relatively mild winter, and the city had actually already put away its snow removal equipment. And then on April 1st, a major storm moved quickly through the area, dumping a foot of snow in 4 hours. And without easy access to snow removal equipment, the whole city paused. Mass transit shut down, cars got stuck in the unplowed street. I watched cross-country skiers making their way down the center of Commonwealth Avenue. And by the end of the week, the warm temperatures had returned, all the snow melted, resulting in a second shutdown due to all the flooding. So this extreme example of changing, unpredictable nature of weather at this time of year is perfect for reminding us that the trickster can make an appearance, telling us not to take the season for granted. The trickster beckons us to remain at the threshold, to experience more than one world at once. We may desire for certainty and simplicity of being in one place, the flowers, the fields of flowers in springtime. We may desire for the ice to melt and for us to put away the snow cleaning equipment. But the trickster forces us to hold the uncertainty and complexity of another world. The ice, rain, and mud, which can return at any moment. We can't get too comfortable, the trickster teaches us. We need to remain open to the unexpected. Because the moment we get too certain or gain too much of a sense of control, we're reminded of forces which are much greater than us. Instead of holding to certainty, the trickster teaches us to ask questions. What do we really want? What do we really need? In the spring of 2021, the trickster beckons us not to rush too hastily into a certain future. Even with the vaccine, we need to remain vigilant to keep COVID-19 in check. Even with the hope of a new national leadership, we witness the hatred of another mass shooting and the heartbreak of families being turned away after seeking refuge in this country. We still do not really know yet what normal will be like in the coming months. And the trickster teaches us to ask, what is it we really want at this time? What is it we really need? We cannot pretend that we know for sure where we are going, but with the trickster as our teacher, we can remain attentive to all that this season brings. And with that heightened awareness, we can continue to ask each other the important questions which guide us on our journey ahead.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is a great mystery. Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is a great mystery. Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is a great mystery. Where do we come from? Life is a great mystery.
Take a deep breath. We find ourselves at a threshold. Winter has passed, summer has not yet arrived, spring emerges. The life world around us shifts, its rhythms transforms from silent stillness to vibrant motion. With the buds, the blooms, the returning birds, and the longer days, we find joy. We celebrate life. What brings you joy? What do you celebrate as spring emerges? We invite you to share your joys in the chat. We celebrate new babies, the spring rain, the beginning workings of compost, the garden coming back to life. Cats that sleep in the sunshine, birds in the yard, a return to visits with family and friends, an end to seasonal depression. The opportunity to see one another's faces, to wear lighter jackets, fewer scarves and hats. Birds building their nests, loved ones celebrating birthdays, anticipated trips.
And with the changes in season come loss. The flowers of springtime must pass. And we have, in addition to these joys, losses. What losses do you carry? What sorrows burden you at this time? I invite you to take a moment and share your sorrows in the chat. Hold on to the sorrows of a death of a loved one. Or lost activities which have still not returned, such as life, theater, the exhaustion of this ongoing pandemic that affects us and also others who we know are having a hard time, keeping us away from family who are far away. The loneliness, the stress of caregiving and chronic health issues, friends who are facing illness, suffering, those who we don't know but are connected to, such as children at the border, people who have been severely impacted by this pandemic in our community. And still we hold anniversaries of those who have passed, mothers, aunts, friends, brothers. We hold on to the hard reality of hatred which still exists in this country. And we yearn for return to going back to our regular spaces, like our congregations, our children's school, and just simply hugging others that we know and love.
This is a time we come together and we hold both our joys and our sorrows. We may desire the simplicity in only celebrating joys, but we need each other to hold the complexity of all this season brings. We need to ask each other at this threshold between different worlds what it is we really and what it is we really need. What do we really need? What do you really need? What do you need as we travel from here into the unknown? What will sustain you and nurture you and give you hope? What do you really need? Share your needs in the chat. We need community, companionship, love. Connection and hugs. Time in stillness to reflect on the wholeness of our lives. Vaccinations. We need new horizons, the chance to be together again. We need strength and energy for what lies ahead. We long for the world to hear each other. We need open minds and open hearts. We need trust and faith and a world committed to nonviolence. We need new friends, mutuality.
We hold all of this, all these joys, these sorrows, these needs for the path ahead. And holding them all, I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer, spirit of change and transformation. Trickster, help us to experience the depth of this moment, both the joys and sorrows of this season. Help us to move beyond our desire for simplicity and rest into the reality of uncertainty. Help us to find comfort in each other, even if we cannot find comfort in this moment. Help us to ask each other, as we are doing now, what we really want and what we really need. And may the answers we have shared to these questions and the answers we continue to provide help to guide us on our path ahead. Blessed be. Our second reading this morning is an abridged excerpt from Ecclesiastes, Book 3, verses 1 through 15. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before.
Yesterday, as my children and I frolicked with friends around our neighborhood, we saw the crocuses pushing their way up, regal in their bright purple, moving through still hard, still cold dirt. We went by the sledding hills, marveling at how different they were yesterday than they were just 4 weeks ago. The weather was gorgeous. The sun was shining. We wore lighter coats. We stayed out later. The signs of spring surely are here. And yet I know, and you know full well from experience, that just as Reverend Andre described, we could easily have a late winter storm that has me wrapping my children in boots and parkas and trudging back out to those sledding hills, white once more with snow. The equinox offers us this perfect moment of equal light and dark. 4 times across the year, we have these awesome and meaningful moments. The equality of the equinoxes and the lean during winter or summer toward light or toward dark. The signs and rhythms of the earth are things we can recognize, pinpoint, truly count on. Since the arrival on the evolutionary chain of humans with a consciousness approaching our own, our ancestors have attempted to understand the workings of Earth, to know its mysteries and patterns. We have, for as long as we know, told stories and done research, looking for answers to the big questions about the workings of this planet and our place on it. And we love those kinds of precise and definitive moments. And scientifically, the vernal equinox is one. My kids wished each other a happy spring yesterday when they woke. And yet we also know there is nothing precise about this shift. We call it a threshold. In truth, if it is a threshold, it is one we linger in for some time, just as the trickster beckons us to. It's what we might call liminal space. I think the first time I heard the word liminality, I was in college in a sociology of religion course. We were reading a book called The Ritual Process by Victor and Edith Turner. Originally theorized by Arnold van Gennep, the Turners deepened this term, liminality, rooted in the Latin word limen, which means threshold. Van Gennep had used it to write about particular rites of passage, how in them something is left behind, then a period of time is spent in in-between space, and then there's a re-entry into community. The Turners broadened the term beyond ritual and used it to describe any state of being for the individual or the group, or even whole spans of human existence in which one or one's community exists in in-between space. For an individual, for example, this might be puberty, a liminal period between childhood and adulthood. For society, war, Wartime might be understood as liminal time. And what is important is that liminal time is sacred time. It's time full of potential. It's holy time. It's time that is full of hope for what will be. The transition from one season to the next is not a clean break. It's a process, a move forward, a move back. We exist for a while in the possibility of more winter and in the promise of coming spring. It occurred to me yesterday, not for the first time, that this is in fact the truth of human living. We hold multiple truths all at once. We grieve as we heal. We laugh amidst sorrow. We remember and integrate our past even as we vision for the future. There are so many ways and times we do this in a life. We await the arrival of a child even as we navigate the loss of our life before children. We move toward a new kind of work even as we attempt to end well where we've been. We invest in and support institutions and communities we care about, even as we think about what those communities might still become. Ecclesiastes holds this wisdom out to us as well. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before. The seasons turn, there's nothing new under the sun. We hold it all simultaneously. And this holding of multiple truths is not just about what we do, it's about who we are. Fundamentally, we humans live with the knowledge that we will die, a challenging truth unto itself. And I have been known to espouse another belief about this being human, that we are perfect as we are, even as we are not yet all that we can become. We live constantly on thresholds in the in-between, navigating multiple realities, finding ways to live as best we can, knowing that the signposts of change also inevitably mean movement in fits and starts. And these seasonal rhythms that we can count on, the earth and its cyclical ways, help to train us for these liminal spaces. 4 times a year, we are invited to remember that almost nothing is a clean break. We're invited to remember that we look backward and forward at the same time, and this is being human. This spring, more than any other in my own lifetime, the potency of this lesson is clear. We've been living in extended liminal time together. These past 12 months have been a collective trauma, yes, a collective harm, yes, a collective challenge, yes, and they have also been this sacred in-between time we call liminal time. And even more we feel it now as we begin to come out of it in small ways, small fits and starts. Reverend Andre said, and it is true, we cannot jump over the threshold and pretend that everything is fine now. We have to remember where we've been, stay vigilant, hold the multiple truths of vaccination and infection rates and variants all together, and make choices that still honor life and safety. But, and this is the other lesson of spring, of course, though we may linger in that liminal time for some weeks yet, waiting to land squarely in spring, waiting for the pandemic to securely end. Though we may stay in the threshold for our entire lives when we consider our living and dying, there's always hope. Hope that we will indeed move beyond the round and open door, going into a future that is brighter, more colorful, more purposeful. Each bud that pushes through the rich soil reminds us what this complex world we share tries to teach us over and over again. Everything changes. And so there's always hope. May our time on the threshold of this year's spring be filled with promise and possibility.
Spring has now unwrapped the flowers, day is fast reviving, life in all her growing powers toward the light is striving. Gone the iron touch of cold, winter time and frost time, seedlings working through the mold now make up for lost time. Herb and plant that winter long slumbered at their leisure, now bestirring green and strong, find in growth their pleasure. All the world with beauty fills, gold and green enhancing. Flowers make glee among the hills, set the meadows dancing.
Please join me in speaking our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not our promises to each other, to tend the light of truth and grace within our own hearts, to hold each other with the warmth of love, to transform this world with our energetic action. May these promises be a beacon of hope until we are together again.
As we look to the future and what might yet become, to what we might yet build, to what might yet be, we know
We will return again.
To this moment of liminality, of threshold living, made plain by the changing of seasons and by the life we share.
We will return again.
to the communities that hold us and love us through all our trials, challenges, sorrows, joys, and celebrations.
We will return again.
To the heart of our purpose, to the vision of our bright tomorrow, even when we encounter setbacks.
We will return again.
Again and again, we will return to acknowledge something greater than ourselves,
To celebrate the mystery and wonder of the universe.
to embrace an all-encompassing love,
To nurture our spirits for the path ahead.
to transform ourselves and the world.
We will return again.
In all our complexities, all our perfect imperfections, all our broken wholeness.
We will return again.
With joyful possibility, with determined hope, and with great love.
We will return again.
Go in peace.